Hey everybody. So I already put a disclaimer on this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say again that if you're the type of person who will watch this video and doesn't understand the point I'm trying to make by making this video, and you just want to comment that I'm looking for attention, or that I'm making this up, or that other people have it harder than me, or any of that stuff, then just please do not watch this video. Like, this video is not for you. This is for people who want to know the truth. This is for people who have experienced similar things. This is for the people that are too afraid to speak up. This is for them and for me, and for us to start a discussion, which has already been started, and which is why I'm posting this video in the first place, because of the whole Me Too movement that's been happening, and everybody's been doing their hashtag Me Too to let the world know just how common and like how often this type of stuff happens. And I've debated making this video for years, and it's only because of the recent things that have come out to the public that I've decided that I'm just going to add my story to this. Wow, okay. Another thing I want to say is, if I seem totally fine when I'm telling the story and seem like not genuine because I'm not going to cry, I think I'm not going to cry at least, it's only because I have prepared myself for this for so long. I've told this story to friends, family. I've written it down a few times. I've had a lot of time to process it. So at this point, it's not that I'm over it or that it doesn't cause me emotional distress. It's just that I've dealt with it for so long that I'm at the point where I don't instantly like start crying or maybe even look that upset when I talk about it, which is weird, but that's what many years of therapy does. Go to therapy, you guys. It works for the most part. This all goes back to 2014, which I've referenced in my other videos as the worst year of my life, as I like to call it, because it is kind of when everything happened all at once. And the reason for my intense anxiety and depression, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression beforehand, but it really just made it worse and led to some other things that I will actually talk about in another video now that I'm like getting a little bit more brave and not feeling as discouraged to make this sort of content. 2014, I'm just gonna give you a brief outline of things that were happening. That's the year my dog died. He was my dog. Like, my family has a bunch of dogs, but this is the dog I got for my 10th birthday, and he was like my best buddy. I was very close to him. He was like the only dog up until this puppy now that I felt like really understood me, if that makes sense. So my dog got really sick and he was put down that year. My Nino, which is my godfather, my uncle, got cancer and passed away in a matter of months that year, which really just took us all by surprise because he was literally like so healthy and just went from being healthy to dying in like just a few months. And it was really, really hard on the whole family. I'm sure if any of you've dealt with anyone who has cancer, you understand just how crazy it is, how fast it can take a person's life. My brother's health was not doing very well, neither was mine, but my mom was spending a lot of time with my brother, and we honestly thought we were going to lose him because of the stuff that he was dealing with health-wise. And so this incident that happened just kind of aggravated all of that and kind of pushed me over the edge. So another thing that was going on was that my boyfriend, who I was with for about almost 6 years, he was away. He was doing some voluntary work in Cambodia for 7 months, and it was kind of the first time I'd been separated from him for that long of a time. And because he was in such a third world developing country, he didn't really have access to computers and phones as much as I would have liked for him to, and it was just really hard to get a hold of him. So I was struggling with that as well. So this brings me to the night of. I felt a lot of loneliness and a lot of I felt like I'd lived a very safe life up until then. I was always the good girl. I got good grades. I never got in trouble in school. My parents never had to ground me. I always played it really safe. So I was like, you know what? This is my time to be a little crazy and hi, honey. And let loose a little, I guess. So bearing in mind that I still was in a relationship, I had some guys that were friends that I was talking to, and I always made it very clear that I was in a relationship with someone that I loved and that I would never cross that boundary. But I did make this friend who, he was dealing with a lot emotionally, which was kind of like red flag number one, because he seemed a little unstable. Not to say that it's a bad thing to be friends with people who are unstable. Everybody needs friends, and everyone is unstable at some point. And so I'm the type of person who I'm incredibly empathetic, almost to a fault, that I will befriend these types of people, and despite seeing how they are affecting my life negatively, I will just keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. So that's kind of how it was with this friend. He wasn't a part of my main friend group. Nobody really knew I was friends with him. He was somebody that I don't want to say was an outcast. Like, he was an outcast in regard to like the people that I knew in high school, because they had had some like maybe bad altercations with him. But he was kind of popular in his own group of people because he was a part of a band. It seemed like he had a lot of online attention from girls. He had a very like public relationship with someone at some point, and kind of had this typical like punk boy like look kind of that like certain girls definitely go for. And so he had this whole like, he was popular in his own right, I guess is what I'm trying to say, just not amongst the people that I knew personally, because I think they knew some things about him that I didn't know, which I should have paid more attention to, but I didn't. So I hung out with him before, strictly in a friendly way. Like, we went out one night, we just got ice cream, and we were just talking. We both had stuff going on in our lives, and it was just kind of like, you know, like friends do. We're just eating ice cream and talking. And he slowly started sending me messages saying that he was developing feelings for me, to which I said, I am in a relationship, and like, and no offense to you, but I strictly have only friend feelings for you. And he would still kind of push it. Like, he'd call me late at night, and he would say things like, you're just one of the most beautiful people I've ever met, and I really like you so much, and I wish you were mine. And me, being the overly nice person I am, would just kind of politely decline him every time and be like, but we can still be friends, you know? So one night he asked me if I wanted to go to his show, and I was like, I don't think I really want to go because I won't really know anybody. Oops. Because I don't really know anybody, and it was late at night, and I didn't really feel safe going out late at night at that time, even though, like, to this day, never mind, let's ignore that. So the night continues on. I'm really upset about several of the things that are going on in my life. I'm feeling extra lonely. I can't get a hold of my boyfriend, and I'm not expecting to for like days later or weeks later. It was just so random when I could talk to him. And I'm slowly thinking, maybe I should have gone out. Like, maybe a distraction would have been good for me. I'm young, like, I should be going out and having fun and not just like locking myself in my room and feeling sad all the time. So I texted him and I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? And been a couple hours later, he's like, I'm driving home from the concert or the show. I'm with a friend of mine if you want to hang out with us. We're just gonna go back to my house and maybe drink, just like hang out. And I was like, okay, like, I don't mind going to someone's house. Like, it's a person that I trust for the most part, and another person's gonna be there, and we're going back to his house. I knew he lived with his parents and stuff, so I didn't think that it was like all that unsafe. At this point, it's like 2 in the morning, and I'm thinking in my head something my dad has always told me, and he's always told me nothing good ever happens after midnight. Like, even if you feel like you want to go out, you're bored, don't go out after midnight, because trouble happens. Trouble will find you. And I'm thinking, I know that, like, I know better, but I was just so upset and depressed, and I needed a distraction so badly. So, and at this time my dad was actually out of town too, so I knew that like getting out of the house wouldn't really be a big deal, if that made sense. Usually he'd kind of like give me crap for it, but he wasn't there, and my mom was a little bit more lenient. I think also if I told her I was going out, she probably would have said it wasn't a good idea, but I didn't even tell her, so maybe that was another mistake on my part, because literally nobody knew where I was going or why or where. So it's about 2 in the morning. He tells me that, no, let me backtrack. So I know that he has feelings for me, and I know that hanging out with him late at night might not be the best idea. So I either call him or I text him, and I'm like, hey, please don't try anything tonight. Like, I really want to make it clear that just because we're hanging out doesn't mean that like I've changed my mind about things. Like please understand that. And he's like, no, don't worry, I wouldn't try anything, like, I respect you. Like, basically assured me that everything was gonna be okay. So I was like, all right, just come pick me up. So he comes to pick me up, and he has a friend in the car, and his friend seems really nice. as we're driving to his part of town, which is kind of far away from where I live, kind of in a more remote area. Maybe not. Maybe that's a bad way of explaining it, but it was a fairly long drive is what I'm trying to say. And throughout the drive, the three of us are talking and getting along, and I feel totally safe, totally fine. Like, it didn't feel weird, it didn't feel awkward. So at this point, I'm still thinking like, you know, this is fine. We get back to his place, and he has like a separate shed, like garage. I guess you could call it a shed. I call it the shed when I'm like talking about the situation. And it's like a little bit separated from his house, and he says that's where his band practices. It's like his like space. So he's like, do you guys want to go into my house or do you want to go in the shed? He's like, my parents and my sister are asleep in the house, so like maybe we shouldn't, but we can if you want. Like, it's warmer in there because it was fairly cold outside. He's like, I could bring like a heater into the shed and like it'll be warmer. And I was thinking, well, or what I told him was, if your parents are asleep, your sister's asleep, like I don't want to bother them, so let's just go into the shed. So we do. When we get in there, he had brought like some pillows and blankets and stuff to like sit on the floor, and there's like band equipment and then just like a rug with like, we had like pillows and stuff. And basically all we did was they were showing me some videos of like their band, and we were like looking up like funny videos on YouTube and like listening to songs and talking, and all of this was totally fine. His friend is like, oh, I brought some vodka, and I was like, okay, I feel safe. Like, at this point, I'm not proud to admit this, but at this point my alcohol tolerance was super high because I was partying a lot. Like, I was the type of person that I could take a ton of shots of tequila and still not be like super wasted. I'd never been like blackout drunk. I had never thrown up from alcohol. I never really had like a crazy experience with alcohol. And so I was like, having a little bit of vodka is like really not going to be a big deal. So we had these red Solo cups and we're all drinking this vodka. And I start feeling like way drunker than I've ever felt. And mind you, I had not had a lot. I think we had like mixed it with orange soda or something gross like that. I had not had a lot, especially compared to how much I had been drinking. Again, going back to just, you know, that was irresponsible and it was a time in my life I really do not feel proud of. But it really was not a lot for me at that time. Like, I barely drink anymore, so for me, like 2 sips of wine and I'm tipsy, I'm done. Like, I don't need any more than that. But at this point, that wasn't the case. So I'm starting to feel like super, like, literally, like I can't even hold my body up. And we're sitting down, we're on the ground, but I feel like I can't even hold my body up. So him being a friend of mine, I feel safe enough to like kind of lean against him and was like, oh, I feel like really drunk. Like, what was in that? Like, I still to this day don't know if there's something in my drink. I'd like to believe that there wasn't, because the other guy was drinking too, and I didn't see him put anything in the drink, and nothing happened. Like, I saw them drinking the exact same thing I was drinking, and they didn't have the same reaction. So I don't know if it was something in my cup. I don't know if it was just like I didn't realize that vodka gets me that drunk. To this day, I will not know. I can only suspect. He did make a comment. Oh my god, I haven't even told you his name. I'm not gonna say his actual name, but we're just gonna call him. We're gonna call him Albert. His name starts with an A, so I figured I couldn't think of very many A names. So Albert is making comments like, oh wow, that got me drunk like really fast. Granted, he's a tiny person. Like, he's like as skinny as I am, maybe like a little bit shorter. Like, he's a petite person, which is gonna come into the story later. I'll explain why that's important. So I was like, oh, he's a lightweight, obviously he's tiny. And things start getting really fuzzy from here. Like, literally the last thing I really remember before things got really weird is kind of like leaning up against him and being like, oh my god, maybe I need to lay down, like I can't sit up on my own. Then I remember nothing. Next thing I know, don't know how much longer it is later, I'm in the dark, I'm alone, it's pitch black. I feel a pillow under my head and there's a blanket on me, and I'm on the ground of this shed, and I'm like, okay, like what happened? I yell out like, Albert, are you there? I'm yelling out his friend's name. I'm like, okay, no one's answering me. I'm clearly like really drunk. Maybe he just like tucked me in, was like, okay, she's done. And then the door opens and it's Albert, and he's like, sorry, I was just taking my friend to my room. Like, I figured he'd sleep there. He said he would sleep there so that we can have some privacy. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I brought protection. And I was like, okay, this is clearly not headed in the direction that I was anticipating. I'm like, you don't need protection because nothing's gonna happen. Like I told you, I don't feel for you that way. Nothing is gonna happen between us. Like, and he's kind of like doing that whole like, shh, it's okay. Like, this is right. Like, I want you. I've wanted you to be my girlfriend. I like you so much. And I just wish you were mine. And at this point, I sit up and I'm so intoxicated, I start throwing up. And I'm just uncontrollably puking. You guys, I have never thrown up this violently or this much probably in my entire life. And like I said before, I've never thrown up because of alcohol before. So this was like a whole new experience. And as this was happening, he is literally trying to kiss me. He is pulling my clothes off. He is saying things like, I love you. He's saying things like, I don't know why you don't like me. I just wish you liked me. And instantly I'm like, I am diabetic. This is the most important thing you need to know right now. I am diabetic. I'm throwing up uncontrollably. This could be very, very dangerous. Please take me to the hospital. Please do something. And he's not doing anything. He's continuing to take my clothes off. I don't want to get into detail about what transpired after that, but I just want to make it clear that as I am crying, telling him to stop, kicking him off of me with what like little strength, I barely had any control of my body. As I'm continuing to puke even, he is still making advances towards me. And this went on for a while, and it kind of would switch to him like pitying himself, like, you just don't like me, why don't you like me? And I'm like, he's saying I love you, and I'm screaming at him, no, you don't love me. I'm telling him, get my purse for me. I need to call like an ambulance. I need to call somebody. At this point, like, because I was intoxicated, I was more concerned that I was gonna get in trouble for like drinking, because I was 20 at the time, and that I just didn't want to cause any trouble, which sounds really weird, but I wasn't thinking straight, obviously. So I was thinking like, I just need someone to come pick me up, and I'm racking my mind for somebody who could like come grab me. That's not my mom. I didn't want to make a big deal, I guess. So I call a couple friends, no one answers because it's probably like 4 or 5 in the morning at this point. Oh wait, no, let me backtrack. He had, I think, hidden my purse from me. It was nowhere in sight. It's pitch black, so I can't see. I'm feeling around. I'm like, get me my purse. Please get me my phone. Please get me my phone. And he's saying things like, if you touch me here or if you kiss me, then I'll like get your phone for you. I'll turn on the light. I keep trying to stand up and get to the door, and every time I stand up, I literally just right back down. Like, I can't even stand up. I'm pulling on the door and it's locked. I'm like, unlock the door, and he's like, no, come back here, come back to bed. And again, I'm not gonna get into detail of exactly what happened, but I'm sure you can imagine the different things that went on. So I finally think of one friend that I know has an early job, which means he'll be up, you know, he'll be up at the crack of dawn because he always is. And I'm like, he'll be awake, I'll call him. I call him, I briefly explain the situation, but not too much detail because literally Albert is sitting right next to me and I don't want to aggravate him further, and I'm not sure what I'm going to say that's going to trigger more, make anything else happen. So I'm like, I got you drunk, I need to be picked up. And him being a really good, decent person was like, okay, tell me where you are. And I'm like, I don't know where I am. I need to go to the front of the house. I need to see what the address is, but I can't even stand up. And then Albert takes the phone from me. He's like, here, this is where we are. Tells him where we are. And I'm waiting for him to come pick me up. And I'm kind of trying to calm him down in a way, because he was like really upset that I wasn't like being affectionate towards him and I wasn't returning his feelings. And he was still like trying, like I would literally try to pull my pants up and he'd pull them back down. And I get a call from my friend again. It's like, the address he gave me is not the right address. I'm literally in the parking lot of a Walmart. And so I was like, okay, I'm getting up. I'm gonna go find the front of the house. So I finally, at this point, I'm like, he agrees that my friend can pick me up. Because he's like, I can drive you if you need me to drive you, but I'm like, you're intoxicated too, because at this point he's like, oh yeah, you are diabetic, maybe I should take you to the hospital. You can't drive me because you're intoxicated. And he's kind of, I'm not going to say coming to his senses, but he's kind of realizing the gravity of the situation, I guess. I don't know. So I say, if you just let me out of this shed, I can go to your house and I can read the address, or I could try to explain to him like what it looks like so he can get me. And he's like, for some reason, he's like, okay, that seems reasonable. So my pants are like not fully on, but I stand up. He opens the door for me. I had the blanket he put on me. I wrap it around myself and I start running towards the front of the house. And it's like kind of, I don't want to say a field, but like a field, like a yard, I guess. I remember there being dirt and rocks, and I'm trying to go as fast as I can, and I just keep slamming into the ground, like scraped at my knees a little bit, got like dirt all over myself. And I finally find the address, or like the mailbox, I guess. At this point, he finally gets a phone from me. He's like, I'll just tell him exactly where we are. And he gives him directions. And he says, we're by like a little, God, how long is this video? River, creek, ditch, whatever, at the street. And from there, you could see the Walmart, if that makes sense, the Walmart where he was. So he's like, you're close by. So he says, okay, I'll meet you there. And I'm like, okay, which is the direction of this ditch? And he points it, and I'm like, I start walking. He's like, no, just wait here. I'm like, no, I'm going. And so I'm like dragging myself along. I have this blanket, and I get to where the road that I knew he was talking about was like a dirt road, I think. It's all fuzzy. And I feel like I'm gonna pass out, and I literally just fall to the ground. According to my friend who came to get me, he said he found me laying on the ground next to a ditch. And at this point, Albert had followed me. So him not understanding or not knowing what had happened was like, you know, what happened to her? And Albert's like, you know, she drank too much, we just drank too much. And so he picks me up, he puts me in his car. Albert has the gall to say, hey man, I just live around the corner, can you give me a ride? So he gets in the car. My friend gives him a ride back to his house, which was like 2 seconds. And as he gets out, he tells him, take care of her, man. Which pissed my friend off to no end. He was like clearly, like, you care about her well-being right now. And you're telling me to take care of her. So he asked me, where do you want to go? Like, should I take you home? Like, at this point, he still didn't know that I had been assaulted. He just thought that I was too drunk. And I said, I can't go home. I can't go home. But maybe if it's closer, and I tell him where I live, I'm like, doesn't matter where it's closer, just take me, whether it's your place or my place. And he says, I think my place is closer, and I have to go to work, but you can stay there. So he drives me to his place. We have to pull over for me to continue to throw up. Like, I really don't even know what I was throwing up at that point. Like, I had thrown up so much. We get to his house, and he, like, I have thanked him so many times for this, and I will never, like, forget the kindness he showed me. He just took me into his house. He checked me into his bed. He said, you know, there's water, there's food here, whatever you need. I have to go to work. When I get home, I can take you back home. And he was just incredibly comforting in that moment. And when something like this happens to you, the person you want to talk to is either, you know, your best friend, a family member, or your significant other. So all I was thinking was, I want to talk to my boyfriend. I want to talk to him. Like, I miss him. I need him so bad. Obviously, he was in Cambodia. Couldn't get a hold of him. It just made the situation way, way worse. I kind of think that's where I want to end this. As far as the story goes, I don't want to get into how I pursued this further, how I went about it legally, what happened. I mean, maybe I could make another story time video where I go more into detail. But this guy did admit to what he did. I have it on camera, actually. Not what happened, but I have him admitting over the phone. I have that footage, and I'm kind of debating if I want to share that here, because I want to get more into the reasons why I handled it the way that I did, and just to kind of explain further, not exactly why it happened, because there's really no good reason for somebody to do that, but I want to get into kind of this person's mental state and all of that. So because I just find it really interesting. There's a huge part of me that wants to say this person's name, because I do know that he had a kind of a fan base, at least for a while. When I look him up, social media, he doesn't exist. I know it's because he's blocked me before, but I've looked him up from other people's accounts and I can't find anything anymore. I know he's made Tumblr accounts and has followed me on them, where I you know, it's not obvious that it's him, so I wouldn't know it's him. And I've texted him before out of anger, like even last year, which was 2 years from when it happened, and he's not responded, so either changed his number or blocked my number. Because of the legal action I did take, I think it honestly kind of just scared the crap out of him, and he didn't want to risk ever having contact with me again. So hopefully he's never going to do something like that again, and hopefully he hasn't. I don't know if he has, and it makes me sick to my stomach when I think about it. I have talked to therapists about this. I have talked to family members, and I don't think that the way I handled it was necessarily wrong, but there were a few things that I didn't do. I didn't, when it happened, I should have gone straight to the hospital. I should have had them examine me. I should have taken photos of the bruises. Literally, when he was pushing me into the ground or into the floor of the shed, I got bruises on my lower back and like my hips. I should have taken photos of those, but at the time, I was literally afraid that if I posted those somewhere or showed them to someone, that people would assume that I was faking it or that they were photoshopped, which just goes into the whole why victims are so afraid to come forward, because a lot of people do fake these types of situations for attention or whatever the reason may be, for revenge or whatever. And it's so hard to sit here and admit that something's happened to you and know in the back of your mind that people aren't going to believe you or think that you're just doing it for attention. And maybe I should have just taken those photos of myself or gone to the hospital just in case I wanted to do something about it. But again, I was in shock, first of all. I'm still intoxicated, still sick and throwing up until like the next day. So I'd like to say that I don't have any regrets because it wasn't my fault. And the way I handled it was, I think it was perfectly appropriate for the circumstances. As a result of this incident, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and it wasn't just this incident, it was everything that happened. I couldn't go out on my own for months. I couldn't go out at night. I still can't walk the dog at night by myself. I used to be afraid for like a period of at least 6 months, maybe a year. I was afraid of like every male I saw outside, like males that were strangers to me, not like my friends or my family, but just any guy that I saw walking on the street. Instantly my heart would sink to my stomach and I would just want to stay inside. I barely went out for like a year. And again, I'm going to get into more detail of the kind of habits and things that developed as a result in another video, because this video is incredibly long at this point, and I appreciate if you have sat here and watched this entire thing. The point I want to make is that if something like this has happened to you, please don't be afraid to speak out, even if it's just to a friend or family member. If it's to me, honestly, my DMs on Instagram are always open. You can send me messages here on YouTube. I don't really check them that often, but I do sometimes. Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me. I prefer people not to use my Facebook because it's more of like a personal family thing. Even if you just need someone to vent to, please let me know, because the fact that all these people in Hollywood are coming out about these things that have happened to them, I think is so important, because this isn't new. This is something that's been happening for a long time, and people have just been ignoring it and pushing it aside. And I think if that wasn't the case, the person that did this to me, it wouldn't have even been a thought in his head. Like, to him, it was like I was just an object that he needed to obtain. It was like in that moment, I wasn't even a person. You guys, like, even knowing that, I'm sitting way too close, even knowing that I'm a diabetic and I could have died for all he knew, because he knows nothing about diabetes, as far as I know, it didn't matter to him in that moment. He just wanted me. It's very important to have these discussions. It's important to know that we as women should not be ashamed of our bodies. We should not feel fearful of speaking out against men. We should be supportive of each other. The whole like she's asking for it argument is just so incredibly frustrating to me. Not that this matters, but I just want to say that the night that this happened, what I was wearing was this: boots, jeans, a tank top with an oversized, like extra large cardigan over it. It didn't matter if I'd been wearing pajamas, sweatpants, a short skirt. This would have happened anyways. Oh, and about the whole thing about his size. I feel like he felt like he needed to get me drunk in order to make anything happen, because he is not a strong person. Like, he's a scrawny, I guess. I feel like that's a mean word to use, but he's a pretty scrawny little person. And if I had not been intoxicated, I know for certain, like, with the adrenaline that was pumping through me at the time, I could have easily overpowered him, like, pushed him off, ran away, whatever. And it's solely because of the fact of whatever was in my system, whether it was alcohol or something added to it possibly, that I was not able to fight back. And it's a huge point of frustration for me, because when I replay the situation in my mind, I picture myself like throwing punches, kicking, and I'm like, well, why didn't I do that? And I have to remind myself it's because I had no control over my body. I couldn't even stand up without instantly falling over. So there's that. Thank you guys for listening to my story. If you have any hateful comments or negative comments, just realize I'm going to delete them as soon as I see them, and I'm not going to respond to them. Thank you for everyone who's been supportive, and I will be making more of these honest and raw videos, simply because I want to bring attention to the fact that sometimes uncomfortable things need to be spoken about, and I want to talk about them. I want people to not feel like they're alone, and I want to find closure, I guess. And I feel like by helping others, or by feeling less alone, it'll be the last thing that I need, the last puzzle piece to making me feel whole again. So thank you for watching. You guys are great. Subscribe for more. You don't have to like this video. One thing I'd like you to comment below is if you would like me to release some of the audio footage. I've listened to it enough times that I can handle listening to it again, if that makes sense. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, let me know. I will post it. I will not release this person's name. I don't know if I'm going to use like a voice changer. I don't know exactly how much of the footage I'm going to show, but if you're interested, let me know. I will put that up, because I feel like putting that up will actually bring me some sort of weird sense of closure. Maybe it won't, but it's worth a try. Thank you guys for watching.